Hey there, I'm Camila, and this is the Rugged Angel cast. And it is time to spend another hour talking to yet another woman who I personally find to be dope and inspirational. Please be so kind as to subscribe to and rate the show on iTunes, Libsyn, Player FM, and Google Podcasts. That really helps me out in letting the podcast get seen and things like that. So I really would love to get this podcast out to as many people as possible. And with your help, it is something that can be done. Now, I had only known this week's guest in passing. We travel in a lot of the same circles, but we never really hung out or talked to each other. We have a lot of the same friends and stuff, a lot of the same interests, but there was never an opportunity for us to just introduce ourselves to each other. And I am terrible at that, at just going up and introducing myself to strangers. So I'll take the blame on that. I'll take the hit on that one. So one day, I took a yoga class at Yoga Motive in Pittsburgh, and it was Heather Manning who was leading that class. And after the class, I positively knew that I wanted to get to know her much better, so I asked her to be a guest on the podcast, because that's how I make new friends now. I ask them to be guests on my podcast. Now, Heather is a writer and yoga practitioner. Heather started writing at an early age as a form of self-preservation, and I would imagine brought yoga into her life for the same reason. So please enjoy the loving, honest, and amusing conversation with my new friend, Rugged Angel number 110, Heather Manning. All right, Heather Manning, welcome to the Rugged Angel cast.
Hello. Here I am. Thank you for having me.
This is going to be great. This isn't the first podcast you've done, is it?
It's not. It's the first one where I'm not anonymous.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a great podcast that goes by the title Beautiful Anonymous, and I'm breaking all of my anonymity at this point, but right. I may or may not have been on that. I have to talk like this.
We'll just go ahead and put some sort of distorter on it.
Distort it.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And then I'm a friend of mine, and I were venturing into creating a podcast ourselves. Uh-huh. And it was an idea that did not come into fruition, which happens. Yeah. But I learned a lot about.
So how far did you get?
We did like storyboarding. Wow. We were planning episodes. We started to record, and then just kind of like, life. Exactly. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it can be a trouble. I have so many ideas about things creatively that I would like to do, but there's not enough hours in the day.
Why? We need the time travel.
I know, and stupid jobs with
yeah, absolutely. 100. Yeah, that's
just getting in the way of all of the nonsense I want to do. It's just outrageous. Like, how am I supposed to get this Billy Zane podcast going?
Yes, plug that podcast. Hasn't happened yet, but it will.
Exactly. Yeah. One of these days.
Yeah.
So any hoozles, how are you today?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I spent the weekend, I spent yesterday and today with my two young nieces.
Fun.
Yes. We've been a little restless lately because when they... Yeah.
Weather.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We live in Northwest PA Southwest.
Southwest.
I'm saying I'm from Northwest. This is Southwest. Yeah. But we live in an area where we spend a lot of time inside and it's cold and
it's rough.
Kids have a hard time. Yeah. So we were outside playing on skateboards today with my husband and doing uncle stuff. No, I'm not a skater. I wanted, when I was younger, I would like hang out with the skater boys.
Right.
Like I might skateboard, but I never got there. I'm hoping this summer to take my nieces. There's a skate park in Swissville that I love.
It's right over here. It's like 5 minutes away. I go there every so often,
nice.
And they have some like grown folk nights if you want to, and just like grown lady nights too if you just want to go.
That's
and just
great.
Kind of learn
there
or just kind of tool around.
I would love that because I could put on elbow pads and arm pads and not feel, or leg pads and not feel weird.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. So, Thank you for the heads up.
Yeah.
It's never too late to learn.
We can totally go together.
Yes.
That's something that we want to do.
Yes, I'm into it. I think that might happen. I got, right now what I'm learning is that at 37, my body is significantly different than when I was 27 and an aspiring skateboarder. So I might have some I might have to be honest about my limitations there.
Oh, yeah. Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. I skated like years upon years ago. And then it'd probably been about 15 years since I had been on a board.
Oh, nice.
And it was just like a few months ago when I got back on it. And I was like, oh my God, this is,
different.
Yeah, it's very different.
Yeah.
It's like, and I've always been a cautious person to begin with, but now it's like even more so.
You're an adult. It's like, no, you already know the damage that you could do. Yeah,
exactly. It's like, I love my teeth. Like I just want to like feel like I'm doing something out here.
Yeah.
I don't need to be, I'm not a trickster. I'm not trying to,
okay. Yeah.
I'm not trying to Tony Hawk it around here. It's fine. So, all right. So are your nieces young or like?
6 and 9.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're fairly young.
Fun.
Yeah, they're fun age. Ariana and Madison. Oh. And they're not my only nieces, but they are the ones that live in Pittsburgh. So we end up seeing each other the most.
Do you have a lot? How many brothers and sisters do you have?
I am the oldest of 4, so 4 total. Yeah, I have 2 young sisters. Diamond is 10 years younger than me, and Jennifer is 9 years younger than me. So they were Irish twins. And my brother, who is 2 years younger than me, and so we grew up. We were pretty close, and then my sisters, it was kind of like I was their second parent because that's just when there's that big of an age gap, that's just what happens. Yeah. Yeah. So
where did you grow up?
I grew up in Meadville, which is, Northwest PA, as I said earlier. Yeah. Right. So it's a small town that is pretty rural, very like Appalachian in ways. Like
hence your Instagram handle.
That is exactly the inspiration. There is, that title Affrilachian, which is part of my Instagram handle, is copyrighted, and it was created by a Kentucky poet who is I think one of the first people to use that term Affrilachian, which is African American and Appalachian combined, and I think identifies a specific way of growing up as a Black person, and so that's definitely how I identify, like growing up fishing.
Yeah. Okay. What was it like? Like, what was rural. The identifier?
It was rural. I think that's way I have been known to call myself a Black hillbilly. It's very much deep, it's that deep. Like I was playing lots of woods, lots of running around the woods when you're a kid, lots of dirt bikes, 4-wheelers, lots of at night we let our dog Bear go run in the woods. In the morning he'd come home. It was like very very country. We would go fishing, and I would like bait my own hook. I was like 6 years old. It was it was great. It was great. It was great for my, I think, my self-actualization as a young woman specifically. There was a lot about being the oldest sibling with my brother, and then I had a stepbrother for a while when I was a kid. So I had 2 boys that were basically my peer group, and so I think growing up where you are generally the alpha of 2 boys, it's very different than growing up with sisters, of course, and just the way that we are all gendered and socialized. There was a lot of, roughhousing and, there's things that I think I would love to see more kids have the opportunity to do, be able to explore nature, be able to be outside and sort of have that freedom to imagine. And so it's changing, not to be dismissive of the way that children are being raised now, because obviously the difference that I see is that there's a lot more screen time, right? Mm-hmm. And I like that in lots of ways. My niece and when we were hanging out today, both of them, we had screen time, and it was fine for me because it was a way of self-soothing, you know? And I think sometimes it's necessary to let kids learn how to do that, but also interact with them, and take them outside, which is why it was cool. We could all go outside today and skate and, do things that were not just sitting in the house and staring at our screens. Right. Yeah.
So growing up in such a rural place and rural. Were there hollers?
Were there hollers? I don't think so. We had cricks. I have a poem that is called Appalachian Child, and it kind of details what that experience was like in some ways. There were no hollers proper, but there were cricks, and there were I'm trying to think of the funny sort of Northwest PA specific terms that we came up with. I don't even know if I can think of terms as much as just instances of I would walk outside and there'd be like a skinned deer hanging in like my uncle's garage, right? Like things like that where, you know,
It's just like,
yeah,
it's just
and
Tuesday.
or like we're going to go to Uncle Miles's cuz he got a deer and we're going to make like chili with the deer meat. And you know, I remember being a kid and be like, I don't like deer meat. And but like they would sneak it in and you couldn't sneak, you know what it tastes like.
But did you find that there were a lot less limitations set upon you as a girl, growing
absolutely.
up?
You know, I never thought of that. I think specifically I've written about it in maybe more poetic ways, but that is certainly, I think, how I regard that experience that gave me this sort of freedom. Bell Hooks has a piece about growing up in rural Kentucky, and she also, you know, uses the term Black Hillbilly, which I think was the first time I really was like, oh, okay, this is something I really relate to. But she speaks of the ability as a Black person to live in a rural environment and sort of experience a freedom of being wild.
Okay.
And I really love that idea. And I feel much like of my childhood was spent being wild to a degree where it was like, okay, that was a little crazy. But there's also like I said, the aspects of it that I appreciate, and it gave me a lot of freedom. And I think that's where, like, you know, my inspiration to write or to do anything creative, because if you spend time, you know, sort of like meandering about, you sort of learn to you know, be comfortable with imagining and reckoning with that, you know.
So when did you first realize that you were a writer? When did you start to write?
Where did I start to write?
Start to jot down your thoughts. And
I remember being really young. I was using writing at a very young age to sort of like deal with the trauma around me. You know, I grew up with an alcoholic mother. She was a single mom. A lot of violence in my childhood, not from my mother, but around me. There was a lot of domestic violence. And so I think it became paramount to my survival to utilize a way of grounding myself and being like critical of my environment. And being like, I can, remember being 5 or 6 and just like journaling something out, you know, I connected very early. I think kids get really into the idea of like making their own stories and creating stories. And I had great teachers at a young age who really encouraged the storytelling process. And I think that was a big game changer for how I was able to sort of like later, I think, integrate sort of traumatic experiences into a more holistic, like, aspect of my life, where it's not just like this bad part of my child, you know, it's like, no, this is a part of me. But because I've learned to sort of tell my own story and create a narrative and tell a future story, I kind of have, and I have great therapists. I've been kind of able to sit with that and work with it. So yeah, great teachers who taught me how to tell stories at a young age. And then I remember being very young and writing a story and getting it published in the newspaper. And, you know, it was like, I think it was a feel-good story. It was about, like, my family had been in a drunk driving accident. We had been hit by a drunk driver. So it wasn't like my parents were in talk. It was a drunk driver had hit, like, 2 cars before us and then hit our car. And then, like, Dukes of Hazzard style, like, flipped onto it. Was wild. Yeah, it was one of those things that was like, oh, wow, like, this actually happens. But I remember, like, afterwards, the way I dealt with that was I wrote about it, because I would, you know, had been writing forever already. It was like 3rd grade, I think. And it was a feel-good tale of, like, don't drink and drive, you know. And that was like the 90s, like, that was the slogan. That was I think they'd started that in like late 80s, early 90s. So I think, and then having sort of that affirmation at a young age of like, this is a gift and you should use it, you know? And so, I started very young. I graduated high school and sort of like meandered a bit around the country from a young age. I was in New Orleans for a year and,
just like on your own? Like, or
I was not, I was not with my family. My mom, my family, like I said, it's complicated, but there's
give as much as you want. You know, you don't have to. It's
fine. Well, I was basically living on my own at 17.
Okay.
So I had an apartment, had a job, was going to high school, graduated high school, was like graduated basically by myself. Like there was nobody, like no graduation party, anything like that. But I know it's sad. Don't cry, guys. It's fine. I know.
No, go on. Tell your story as I'm reaching for tissues.
But again, this is like the part of me that I really feel excited about. And I'm so inspired by young Heather because I don't know how I did it. You know, I had a friend who, he was a musician and his brother was a musician and his father was a musician, and sort of the town that I lived in, there was a liberal arts college. And so there sort of developed, I think, a nice like liberal arts community. You know, we had like, there's a place called the Market House, and there would be events and concerts there. And so at the time, this friend of mine who I was dating at a very, was young and had a boyfriend, his father was living in New Orleans. And he moved to New Orleans, and I went on a road trip, and I fell in love with New Orleans. And I was like, I'm going to come live with you in New Orleans. And like, I just did that, I wasn't going to college, but I wanted the experience of enrichment that I think comes with college. And if you can sort of get that through traveling, which I think is possible.
Oh, absolutely.
It was... that was the route I took. It was the one available to me. And it was one I was brave enough to do at that time. Because again, I look back and I'm like, girl, if you were my niece, I would flip out. Like, what are you doing?
Like, you aside.
Yeah, like you can't.
Ma'am.
Yeah, but I had a lot of freedom. So, I kind of meandered around, and it was in New Orleans for a year, and then ended up in Philadelphia for about 4 or 5 years, where I did some college, like community college there for art. But I really think Philadelphia was a change for me in the way I wrote, because at that time there was a lot of like the spoken word scene was pretty big, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Erykah Badu and Flowetry and that was like the vibe.
Right.
And it was before I think spoken word had kind of gotten into this redundancy where you heard the same cadence, and it was still something that was very vibrant and fresh, and I was able to sort of explore that while living there, So yeah, kept writing, and then I didn't write for about 3 or 4 years. 3 years.
Was there anything in particular?
Probably. There was probably something, but it was just, it didn't happen. So I just picked up a pen and paper in an official way, probably like 2 years ago for the first time. Yeah. And it was just like, I'd never stopped. And so I started writing poems again, which was wonderful. And I had my first residency experience this summer, which was fantastic.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it was really great. It was like 3 weeks. I got to hang out in the Appalachian Mountains in West Virginia with 2 other artists. Paul Pang, who is an amazing painter, and this fantastic fiber artist who, both really young, and that was fantastic. That was, I think, the best part of it for me. One of the best pieces, rather. Exposing myself to young artists who were fresh out of college, and younger folks, not kids. I'm not I'm not ageist, guys. I'm just old.
Folks younger than me.
Significantly younger folks. I feel like their perspective is so inspiring in many ways. We see it here with the kids who had the walkout, and protest. And I think most of the young folks I'm encountering, they don't have any real choice but to be aware of and to have a sort of analysis, even if they're not like walking around like, I have that analysis, they're still like, nah, man, the shit, like most of this stuff is crazy.
Right.
And like,
they see it. They're thinking about it. They're working it out.
They can't help it.
I know it. And they have their opinions about it, and they are letting us know.
Yeah. It's wonderful.
Which is amazing.
It's been really, wonderful. And sad to a degree, because you're like, dang,
right. Well, I wish there wasn't a reason for them to have to fight and stand up and protest against things and injustices.
Yeah. But, So I think having my craft exposed to young people in an environment we were building basically a practice. For me, it was building a practice, revisiting that idea of what it meant to have a practice after having not. I mean, I'd had one, but in different capacity, right? So I just graduated from a yoga teacher training program, and that certainly is a practice that I've incorporated into my life. And I think it's creative for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
And so but having a practice in which I'm committed to sitting down for a certain amount of hours or a certain, space-time continuum. That's where I'm doing it. That's where I'm creating. No, for it's kind of blocking out time just for your writing and figuring out like what works for you. Am I a morning writer? Am I an evening writer? Am I someone who needs that really like solid scheduled time, all of that. So it was great.
Have you managed to keep it up?
Yeah. I mean, that's what my
those 3 weeks are beautiful.
This taught me that capitalism is destroying wonderful creative minds.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because it's been interesting. That was the biggest, it wasn't a disappointment, but I think it was a surprise for me because, anytime if you picked up a camera and you were, you told me that you shot film for a while and, haven't done it necessarily in consistency lately.
Well, no, right? I shoot concerts at Manchester Craftsman's Guild.
Oh, well, yeah. So there, I can't compare it. So if you put something down for a while and you pick it back up, you think that is enough, right? But it's absolutely not. You have to like maintain it with, in my case, I found I have about 3 different journals. And so one of them is devoted to just my yoga practice.
Okay.
One is devoted sort of to, it's more yoga, but it's also incorporating some of the esoteric, some of the 8 limbs that I practice. So Raja Yoga is the type of yoga that I studied. And there are sort of these spiritual principles that go along with it. And I use one of my writing prompts is to sort of think about these 8 limbs and then apply them throughout the day or the week, wherever I'm at. And so sometimes it is that specific and direct, like where I'm like, I'm going to apply this limb. Like, I'm thinking about the yamas or the niyamas or, and then other days it's just like, you were not, you weren't acting in integrity with this, or you were, and this is how you exhibited it. So like I could say like nonviolence, right? And so like every single time that I'm like berating myself in my head, that's like an act of violence, right? And so I use that as sort of a writing prompt and see what I can get out of that.
So are these training, is this new mindset, or is this a new mindset since you had gone through the training, the yoga? Absolutely.
That was a pretty transformative experience with that program. It was an 8-month program.
Wow.
It was the framework is anti-racist and trauma informed.
This is with Miss Felicia.
Yes, the wonderful
Felicia Savage,
the legend.
Yes.
Yoga Roots on Location. Yeah, so her program is pretty unique in that she is a Black woman who's teaching yoga in a capacity that I have not seen in anywhere else I've lived. So I'm sure it's different now, right? So I lived in Pittsburgh now for I think it's been 9 years now. But when I was living in Philly, I didn't feel like I was connecting with like a yoga community that looked like me.
Oh no!
Which is why I just would stop going. I'd show up at classes, and so that's how my practice was forever. I'd been doing yoga pretty much since I moved out on my own, I think. But it would be, I'd show up at a studio, I'd take a couple free classes, buy a pass for a month, and then I'd be like, this is not what, you show up and there's a vibe, and you're not necessarily like there to engage that vibe, which is, it happens, so it's nice that I found someone who is working, I think, to create a community of yoga teachers and practitioners that is very inclusive. And I think about things like, how we show up in our bodies a lot. And, as someone, like I said, who comes from sort of a traumatic childhood, it's been really valuable for me to sort of work with other people who've experienced that and kind of bring these tools into places that maybe need them, right? So I spend like one volunteer shift a week at the Women's Center and Shelter. And that's really, for me, has been amazing, right? In that I am constantly remembering that everyone's engaging with reality in very different ways and showing up in the best way that they can, and that's the yoga that I teach to, is allowing people to show up in whatever way they are able to, which is scary because it could be that somebody's mental health isn't the greatest, right? So, or somebody has extensive back issues, right? But you are teaching to to everyone, and so just being aware what that looks like, and we don't, when I lead a class, we don't do adjustments, so no hands-on adjustments, and that's just part of the trauma-informed aspect where you're not, I don't know how someone's experiencing their body at that moment or in their past. And so me just walking, and that could be a reason that people don't come back to, yoga or, or turned off by a studio. So,
well, I guess that's how that could very well be a reason. And it's also, I don't know, I have found yoga to be a very personalized practice or situation as to where I have gone to like different classes. I have, and I've seen it all taught different ways or led different ways. And I think the one that I connected with the most is the way that you led the class.
That's so amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. And I don't remember specifically what it was you said or what was going on, but in that moment, exactly.
Don't remember it, yeah.
But I know there was a moment where you were like, let it go, like let whatever go. And I actually did, like, I cried.
Yeah.
There in whatever pose that I was in, and you let it go, and it was great, and it was exactly what I needed in that moment, and
that's the goal, right? Just being able to provide that space,
right? Exactly. And is that just like is that just Raja yoga, or is that just specifically just your?
I'm blushing right now. You guys can't see it because I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I think a lot of it is that I studied with someone who made it a big priority to practice what you preach, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's half the battle. If I'm able to show up in a way that is not just I think there is like a disconnect that can happen when you're just using yoga for a physical practice.
Right.
So that's, I think if I'm there just to like do this workout with y'all, it's not going to be the same experience as if I, spent some time meditating that day and did some of my writing and, all the things that contribute to me being able to show up and hold that space for others, So, if it's me, cool. And I think maybe a little bit of it is because I do enjoy teaching, but I think most of it is the practice. So that would be, Raja Yoga and studying the 8 limbs and being able to feel supported by that. It's been a rough week in Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah.
Like we've had a lot as far as like, I think the black community, I hate saying the black community because I think it's a Pittsburgh issue, right? So like I keep hearing from like white folks like, oh, we need to support the black community. I'm like, where does that come from? This is our community.
Yeah,
this is
exactly.
like, so without like meandering too much, there's been another police officer acquitted for the murder of a young black man. Yeah, so child.
Young black child.
Yeah, let me not say a young black man because he's not. He was 17.
Right.
And so it's been hard. It's been really hard. I feel in lots of ways there has been a collective grief, but at the same time, there's been a lot of, like we kind of touched on earlier, kids are, the teenagers, high school age children, junior high children, like they walked out of school and they are, they're not here for it. They're not here for the shenanigans. So, and so in some ways it's been like a very inspiring week, right? In this way, but I feel like there has been the need to kind of lean into some healing, and it's not my impulse, I realized, right? So my impulse, I think a lot of folks when they're going through challenge, right? In the moment, if you're frustrated, your impulse isn't like, girl, now do your breathing in through your nose, out through your nose. No.
It's like, I'm going to scream, I'm going to fight.
Right. I'm going to hold on to this in my body. It's just what I need right now. And I'm going to lay in bed and eat like donuts. Go, whatever, and watch Buffy for 2 hours. Don't mess with me. So, and that is the impulse. So I think what the real practice comes down to is being able to, in the moment, recognize this is a hard week, this is a hard moment, and I need to rely on the tools that I have, right? And so I want to be able to provide that same experience for folks, like a tool. It's just a tool to cope with what's going on in the moment, and maybe through doing that, through breathing a little deeper, or through remembering to not be so violent with yourself and your thinking. Right. You can bring that to other folks. You can bring that with you, and so. Yeah, what was the question?
I don't remember. But we'll just kind of mosey on through. We'll find it. Whatever. That's fine.
I'm into it.
So I think that me personally, like I look for yoga as more of a emotional and mental exercise as opposed to physical. And I think that's also one of the main differences that I saw in between Yoga Motive.
Right. Yeah.
And any other yoga studio or class that I'd ever attended. The big difference, obviously, is the amount of Black women that are present.
Absolutely.
And that makes a huge difference to me as a Black woman, to just the level of feeling of comfort, as well as inclusion and, camaraderie.
Yeah.
Like we all, more than likely, we're all going through basically the same thing. Like we get it. We know what's up. And I know that Yoga Motive isn't like exclusively just Black women, but I do love the fact that we are all drawn to there.
Yeah, I mean, that is the best part. I mean, when I when I completed my yoga training, I was thinking the entire time it would be a great opportunity to work at Yoga Motive and to be able to lead a class there, because it's in East Liberty. It's owned by a Black woman. It's something that I think is unique in that the business model itself is crafted around providing a creative experience. And so Yoga Motive, the business model is that they are creating these beautiful paintings with yoga, and you should look into that more if you haven't looked into it.
Seriously, it's fun.
It's so fun.
And you get a wonderful piece of art for your living room.
Yeah, and then so she's also been able to provide a space for mostly Black women to come and practice. And it's not exclusively Black women, but it is a place that I think, like you said, because it's because a lot of teachers are Black women, we're able to be like, oh yeah, we're connecting with our communities, and and so a lot of my friends end up coming, or folks who I haven't seen for a while. Yeah. And so that's like, it's a nice opportunity to check in. That's like, okay, how's it going? Okay.
That's like, it's pretty great like that, because there's been a couple times I've gone, there's like, oh my God, like so-and-so is here. I haven't seen you in forever.
Yeah, no, it is. It's wonderful in that way.
Yeah, it's a glorious thing. And you said you've been doing yoga off and on for like however long, but
for
it was
a while, but not
8 months. Like, how long ago was it that you got you got certified?
We got certified around November, I believe. I think. Don't quote me on that. I might be late. Not long ago. It wasn't long ago. So maybe. I'll look at the actual graduation.
It's fine.
It was 8 months. We started in April. Give me a date. It wasn't a very long program. It's normally a 12-month program. It's usually a full year. This was a little unique. It was an intensive. And so, I had gone into it with, I can do my downward dog. I can do my warrior. I know how to do these poses. I went into it with this, I think, pretty Western idea of what yoga feels like and looks like in your body, which is just like super competitive. Like, we're going to show up, we're going to try to bust out this move and be perfect with it, And then when I was doing the program, I realized that it wasn't like that at all. And so I was really, it's a restorative program in the way that you go through a lot. It was a program that was unique in that there were probably mostly Black women in it, right? So there was like 20 or so Black women and about 4 or 5 white women. And so, that made the dynamic really wonderful and inspiring and transform. Like, I felt changed after it. So it definitely became like, oh no, this is a tool. Now I have this tool. Like, I need to rely on this tool. Not even I need to, but I have to rely on this tool, because it is a way that has changed me and has allowed me to access parts, not even of myself, but ways of living that perhaps I didn't necessarily have access to. In the program, we do have a lot of conversations around race and around what I think racialized trauma looks like, and so that was, I think, Pittsburgh's a majority white city. It can get real overwhelming in that way here. It can feel a little suffocating,
and difficult to find your people, basically.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so you end up, I think, sort of, Zora Neale Hurston has that quote, which is, I feel most Black when thrown against a sharp white background.
So that's
sort of how Pittsburgh sometimes feels. And so you kind of like, I think Damon Young also wrote about this idea that Pittsburgh is the blackest city because in order to be black here, you have to be black, you know, in this way where it's like, you're not even like, you're showing up, you're looking for other black people, or you're like very consciously creating communities, you know, and so it felt like this very like specific way of showing up and dealing or thinking about engaging these conversations, not thinking about, but yes, engaging these conversations around race and identity. And
sometimes it's like, you don't even know that you're not really consciously even looking for it, and you don't even realize that you're missing it until you get there. It's
absolutely.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's it. Because it's not something you're like out, you know, it is a more of when you're in the environment where you're able to discuss, like I said, like certain things I think you can only share with people who maybe are going through them also. You do have an opportunity to sort of breathe a little differently, you know. But for me, that meant that I was able to use the practice to engage a lot of my anger, you know, I think when you grow up with any sort of trauma from your childhood, especially with an alcoholic mother or, you know, or a parent who's an addict, I think there's a lot of tools that you need, you know, and it's not just folks who grow up with, you know, traumatic, who have traumatic childhoods, you know, being an adult can be traumatic, you know, all kinds of things, you know, it's just stressful. Life is stressful. So
there's trauma around the bend just waiting for everybody.
Like, you know, hey. Yeah, exactly. So, I feel like we're in a Jordan Peele film right now. Okay. Yeah. So I was able to find a new tool and do it in an environment that I feel like I was seen in, right? Like, a lot of times I think it gets really easy to just sort of like show bits and pieces of yourself, but you were really encouraged to show up and be honest, you know? So if that meant that you were having a hard time that day, or if it didn't matter, because Felicia was like, well, we're going to go here and do this yoga and we're going to go talk about our feelings. So what are you ready to do? You know, it was, So after that program, it became pretty much a regular practice in my life. And and so here I am, it's been, I think, 6 months since the program, I think. Timelines. Time isn't real. I just need you guys to think about that. It's not real.
Time is a man-made construct. So talking about your feelings and everything, is that something that was relatively new to you? Is that something you've always been comfortable doing?
Yeah, I'm a talker. You know, here I am. Yeah, I'm having a great time with you. I enjoy talking. But talking about feelings maybe is not necessarily something I'm comfortable with or engaging in this way. Like, my background, I come from a punk background, right? So
yes, I've seen some of your throwback Thursday.
Pictures.
I love them.
I was I was like, you know, bleach hair and Germs t-shirts and spike collars, all that. So I participated in a community that really, I think, gave me an outlet for my anger, and that's my, I think, primary emotion most of the time. And so that after through the program, and I think through just engaging with therapy and healing modalities, you know, you recognize that that there is a sadness underneath that, you know, and so I was challenged to really think about where that was and where it came from, or just have a conversation with that. And so, it was not something that I think I'm comfortable talking about myself or my feelings and to a degree, if they're very specific, right? Like when I was punk, it was like we had ways of expressing ourselves that could be, pretty emotionally charged, but they were like also tinged with, I think, some political underpinnings and, you know, it was more strategic, right? And then I shouldn't say when I was punk. You're forever punk once you're punk.
I was gonna say.
FYI, FYI, like forever punk.
That's probably like when I was punk is like the least punk thing you could probably say.
I'm like, never dies. But yeah, so I learned, instead of maybe using sort of like these passionate proclamations, that I could, you know, pause for a moment and show up and have some discernment, which is it's putting on my big boy pants. I can't just run my mouth all the time. I mean, I can, but also just recognizing when it's going to be harmful to myself, right? Or when I'm reacting from a place of sadness instead of being honest about, you know, what's going on. So was I comfortable before the program? No, I definitely showed up like the first day, like Andrew Dice Clay, like, what do y'all want? You know, it's like, what do you want to talk about? You want to talk about feelings? I don't like none of y'all, you know? And
so really, this transformation of Heather is new.
It's fairly new.
Yeah.
It's the tender part of me. It's definitely, I mean, people who are close to me perhaps had access to it, but I don't think it was, not something that I was putting out there in my persona. I'm like, hi, do you want a hug? That was actually, you know what? That's real. That's a good question, because the hardest part of my training, and I'll be real about this, has been we do a group hug at the end of every Yoga Roots yoga class, and Yoga Roots on Location yoga class. And I struggled with that for a long time. And not because I have, I'm not anxious about touching necessarily. It was the intimacy of connecting with people, of saying, like, I honor you in love and truth and peace, and, you know, and like having to like look at people in the eyes and say that, and just be super present. That was hard. And I definitely struggled for a while. And when I finally like memorized, because there's a whole prayer that we say at the end, the Namaste prayer. And so when I finally memorized it, I was like, oh, you're showing up. You're showing up for your, you know, in all ways. And so, and it just kind of spills into your regular life, you know, for better or worse.
It's like whether you want it there or not. It's like, and then the other day I was in the grocery store and I was like, do you want a hug? And
that's for real, yeah. Do you need a hug? Yeah.
Well, that's great. That, you know, and it's, you know, a lot of times people try to say that, you know, oh, I've gotten this far in life. Well, I'm this age and then there's no change in me now and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, it's a great example of how, yes, absolutely. If we do the work, if we show up, and if we are really committed to actually doing it and wanting to change, if, you know, whatever it is you want to change about yourself is absolutely possible.
Yeah.
And we can become different versions of ourselves, not necessarily a different person. Like, but you'll be a different version of yourself.
I love that. That's exactly it. Yeah.
And I am, you know, it's not like we grew up together or that I've known you for years, but I'm proud of you for being able to do that, to make those changes.
Thank you. And we should, thank you, because we should tell each other in more when we're proud. And it's not just of like our academic achievements or, you know, whatever scholarly pursuits or creative pursuits we all do have, you know, out there. It's for making those like decisions just to like show up and be in like in love. Yeah. Just I'm showing up in love. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Do you think that younger Heather would recognize?
Oh yeah, she'd be like, "Oh my God, that lady is so cool. Yo, her husband's hot as hell." Shout out to the husband. Nice. Yeah. So yeah, I think I that's actually a huge motivation for me, is thinking about what my younger self would have imagined for my older self, and this is way beyond what I would have hoped. You know, I was at a young age. I was like, I'm going to have several lovers in several countries. I'm going to travel. I'm going to be a vagabond. I'm going to write. I had a very romantic view of what my future would be. So, you know, I was a young creative kid. Those are the sort of things we think about.
Yes, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So, and the fact that like I'm, you know, in a very happy, committed, loving relationship, and I have a great cat, and I have a great community. It would I think greatly please my younger self, who was in a lot of pain. You know, she didn't have access, I think, to the parts of me that I now have access to. So I think I would definitely be surprised. Yeah, like, you know, 18-year-old me would be like, "Oh, really? Where's your other husband?" You know, or his wife.
So you got some dude in France, right?
Exactly. But no, this, you know, so yeah, I'm pleased. I'm very, I think, I am proud of myself also, you know, and I think there is something to be said for folks who are committed to also, you know, breaking these sort of trauma loops of our family, you know, or healing ancestral wounds and that whole thing. You know, there's a lot to be said for that, because a lot of folks are just repeating things that they grew up seeing, you know, and that's where we come in, where I think about things like people are just showing up and doing the best they can, you know, and most of that is because they had crazy childhoods
Right.
or, or whatever, adulthoods with something, so.
There was something in there that,
Yeah.
and it does happen. It's, generation to generation
Generational,
to
yeah.
generation. And a thing that I think has plagued the Black community in that is that for so long we were taught or to think that, therapy is a crutch. It's not something that we do.
Yeah.
We don't have time for it.
The crutch word. That's
Yeah.
I've never heard somebody say crutch. I've heard people talk about, Black folks who say like, oh, therapy, that's like white folks thing.
Right.
But like crutch is exactly what we're thinking. Like, because it's like, we're supposed to be stronger,
right.
And I think that's where the anger for me came in for a long time, was that I was expected to show up and be way stronger
right.
than I could, you could ask a child to be or a person to be. So I think, that is, it's seeing, I'm pretty honest with my family about, being in therapy and being into yoga and, having these very specific modalities of moving in the world or ways of moving in the world. And I think for a long time, my family was like, I have a big family. I have like 5 uncles, 4 aunties, like,
oh, man.
That's my mom's side, and that's who raised me. So that's like my family. But, for a long time, I think there was a eye rolling, like, whatever, Heather's just out here not eating meat, whatever she does, So,
okay,
exactly.
Here's a crystal.
Well, I think now it's become so mainstream, like the whole idea, of being vegan or,
right.
not that I'm vegan, but being healthy and pursuing modalities of healing that maybe are non-traditional,
right.
or I think it does appear, I get less, maybe they're just used to me, but my family, I get less eye rolls from my family these days. They seem more intrigued, but I'm also getting older, so they could just be getting used to me
right.
at this point, which is great, because I want more of us to like infiltrate families that need
right.
this sort of way of being in the world, because nothing wrong with yoga or,
Well, it's like and I also see a therapist and I have for several years now, and she's great.
Yeah, we should all
She's
see
awesome.
one. Yeah.
And that was also a thing. Like I think I kept it from my mom for like a long time
totally.
Because I didn't want the judgment. And I didn't want the.
It's like, everything okay?
Yeah.
What do you need? What's going on? You're like, no, I'm fine. Actually, I'm not.
Like, it's great
that's
now.
why I'm
like,
going.
right.
Yeah, because I want to
totally
be this
cool.
way for a while. Yeah, thank you.
So, but when you finally you talk about it, and it's like, okay, because there would be things like I would be going through something, or she'd make a comment. She's like, I just wish I could be a little more even keeled like you. Or the life.
Yes.
I'm like, well, this is how it happens.
That's so awesome. That is exactly it. That's how we break those sort of cycles. Yeah.
Right.
Just like and that's why I'm so excited about like seeing the kids that are coming up right now, because I think they are going to really just push us into a different trajectory as far as our future is concerned. Absolutely.
Like,
I don't think we have a choice. I think that they're not out here having, like, I look at even like the young creatives in Pittsburgh, like 23, 24-year-old young Black creatives, like, and they're just doing so much where I'm just like, what? How?
Right.
There was a poetry reading last night, Girls Running Shit. Have you heard about this group?
I've heard of it.
Yeah. So they set up a huge poetry reading. I was hanging out with little kids. I didn't go, but I saw the photos on my Instagram and I was like, these folks are out here and they're younger, they're just doing it, which is like, that gives me so much joy, because I know that there are cycles being broken. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what haven't you done yet that you would like to do?
Write a chapbook. I'd like to write a zine. That's my big, I've been talking to the friend Atia, who, if you don't know, or you have not interviewed her, get her on your radar, because she is amazing. I think her Instagram was Old Bones Jones Forever. I don't know if it's still that. So she just did a zine, and I was super inspired by that because I've been saying I was going to do a zine forever. So that's something I'd like to do. I would also like to do a bit more traveling. I will be leaving the country for the first time next week. I've never.
Congratulations on that.
I know. My first passport stamp. It's so exciting.
Lovely.
Yeah. So, I want to do some more traveling. We're going to Mexico, but I would like to hit up, I haven't even, this is silly, but like Toronto, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like things that you don't even think about. You're like, oh, but like Toronto it's a whole different, it's something else going on up there. So that's always on
Toronto is great.
Yeah. I hear nothing but good things. So thanks for also affirming that. So some more traveling. I have not bought a home with my husband, and that's something we talk about. So, the changing real estate in Pittsburgh might be a challenge. So we've thought about leaving Pittsburgh, which would be weird, because I love this city, but it's also like maybe something that I haven't done that in the last 9 years I might need to do. What else have I? There's so many things, dude. Like I have projects that I like think about as far as
so many
things,
so many things unanswered, unfinished ideas and journals.
I have a couple poetry readings coming up that I'm pretty excited about, and so I haven't read poetry publicly, I think, for about a year now.
Really?
And so are
these open to the public, or
they will be. I have a First Friday event coming up. I can send you more information about that.
Do.
Yeah, and the yoga group that I just graduated with, they're doing a fundraiser for Yoga Roots on location, so I'll be reading there.
Nice.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I'm working on my business plan right now for yoga, which I'm not necessarily excited about turning into a business, but I do want to have a model that I can say, hey, this is what I can provide for you.
Right.
Like I don't see it ever being my main format of making money, or I don't want to really capitalize on it.
Right.
Maybe I should change that, but right now I'm not interested in capitalizing on it, but I am interested in creating a more grounded vision of how I can provide services, how I can be of service to people,
That's important.
Yeah, for sure.
Recognize that and actually want to do it.
Yeah, thank you.
And I usually ask my guests at this point, like, how do you self-care? But I feel like it's kind of the whole thing that we've been doing here.
If you got some good sativa strains, holla at me. I also enjoy fine chocolates, dark chocolates, laughter, good comedy. If you got any suggestions, there's like a magic place downtown now. Do you know about this?
Like a magic shop?
Not a magic shop, but there's like a place that's putting on magic shows. Do you know about this?
Oh, I thought it was just like a one-time thing.
Is it just one time?
It was something happening at the cultural...
This is how rumors get started.
So there's a magic castle downtown.
Yeah, dang it. I'm so excited. That's all right. Thank you.
I think it was just some performances that were happening like at the cabaret.
Maybe it's a secret. We don't know.
Yeah. Maybe I don't know the code word. Like, that's it. I don't know all the right people.
I'll find out.
There's no Joe Bluth to shove it away.
Good reference. Yes.
Okay. So, all right, so we got all that down. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back for the section I call Questionable Conversation.
Oh, wow. Wonderful.
Where I ask you 20 random questions.
Cool.
All right, we are back with Heather Manning, and now it's time for Questionable Conversation. Hopefully you were able to gather some fine chocolates and or special sativa strain of some sort for Miss Heather.
And holla at me, my Instagram, Affrilachian Yogi.
Holla at her.
DM me. Thank you. Slide right in.
Get that care package together for her.
Thank you.
All right, questionable conversation, 20 random questions. Are you ready?
I am ready.
It's not rapid fire, so don't.
Oh,
okay.
Thank you.
So,
you know what? I can engage my breathing. Yes. I'm fine. Go as fast or as slow as you want.
Okay. What album can you listen to from beginning to end?
Ooh, this is a good one. I am always going to be a Ride or Die Cat Power fan. That's the homie. I just got a chance to hang out with her for the first time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's a great lady, and I've been a fan since I was in my early 20s. So I think What Would the Community Think is probably one of my favorite albums of all time. Could I listen to it all the time? Now, Sean Marshall, if you're listening to this, I can't listen to that album all the time. That's a sad album. Would I want to? Yes. That's a dope album. Forever.
But I need to get shit done.
Yeah, exactly. I can't just be crying all the time.
Do you need to write down things to remember them?
Absolutely. I'm a huge list maker. I love it. Yeah.
What's the first thing you do when you get home from a trip?
I usually make sure my cat's alive. I got a lot of anxiety, okay? I get real anxious. I'm like, she fell out the window, something happened, she's in a place that she can't get out and she's scared. So, gotta check the cat.
I freak out a little bit. Even though we have people come in and check on our dogs. Like, I'm just like,
they're not good enough.
Are they getting enough snuggles?
Yeah.
Are they going to be all right?
Exactly.
Are they going to be
She sheds instantly as soon as I touch her. She's so stressed out. She's like, where have you been? She's not even it's really my husband's cat, but she's our, she's our baby.
What is your favorite part of the human face and why?
Ooh, I like that one. Human faces. I enjoy eyes. I am an eye person. Yep. If you have that's probably why it's hard for me to engage. Yeah, any eyeballs. But I'm a sucker for some pretty eyes. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah, all right. Also,
you have very pretty eyes.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. You also do the shape of them. Yeah, this is actually what this is going to degenerate into. It's us just complimenting each other, and then we're going to do yoga,
gushing all over each other.
Yeah. No, I think I'm an eye person. Yeah.
What is your favorite part of the day?
Ooh. You are coming with these. So when I did my residency, one of the things I was curious about kind of unfolding or unpacking rather was my schedule without work, because I work from 5:30 till 1 p.m. and so that's a pretty specific schedule, right?
Yeah.
So I wake up at 4:30 every morning.
Yikes. Like for real? Like now? You do this now?
That's what I live. That's my life. Yes. This is my current life. Yes. And so, yeah, I have a really specific schedule that turns into me being pretty exhausted by 10 o'clock, right? Yeah. And so my goal at my residency was to figure out what actually works for me as far as like a sleeping schedule and creative schedule. And I think what I learned is I miss the nighttime. I really do enjoy nighttime for creative things. And so late into the evening, it's a magical hour, right?
Yeah.
There's something that happens when we're not expected to do anything, or that element of sort of sinisterness that hangs out. I do enjoy that. I wish I could say I'm a morning person. I'm just not. It's just something that I now am.
Yeah,
I just work these factory hours, so it's just like who I am at this point, and it's not.
I've tried that, and it doesn't.
It's not natural.
Like I get up and go to work at 9 or whatever, but I'm really not awake until 11.
Exactly, right? This is the way that we're supposed to
I'm
be.
Here.
Yeah, here I am.
But
yeah, so
you shouldn't engage.
No, dangerous times. Exactly.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how strict were your parents?
Why would they be strict? No, they weren't strict. I would say it's a hard question to answer because it was it was day to day. Like some days it could be like you can't go out with your friends to that cabin in the woods, which is probably good. Thanks, Mom. Probably a good idea.
There's a whole entire horror movie named called Cabin in the Woods.
But it was also
for that reason.
It was also
the whole genre of horror movies.
To be fair, probably the next month I moved out and got my own apartment, right? So it was like my mom was strict but to a degree where it was like I had a tremendous amount of freedom at a young age. So, yeah.
All right. Do you prefer reading paper or electronic books?
Oh, good question. I'm just keep saying that after every question. I'm like, good question. I'm so glad you thought of this. Thank you. I think I enjoy paper, but it is far more economical for me to get the good old Kindle download, and I just read so much all the time. I usually am reading 3 books at any given time.
Yeah.
Right? So I think for any voracious reader, you just end up getting a Kindle by default.
I just romanticize the paper.
I love it.
It's
There's
either
a
that or
visceral
Audible.
experience.
That's
yeah.
what
really?
I'm doing. Yeah.
Word. Okay.
I've started doing a lot of
I've been thinking about Audibles. That's good to hear more. That someone who enjoys reading is also really into the Audible. I'll have to check that out.
It's mostly like the memoirs that I really like,
and people read it.
Yeah,
in their
exactly.
Voice. So
yes.
good.
So that's like my favorite right there. Which of your 5 senses would you say is your strongest?
My smell. Absolutely. I'm that person who, like if there's like an odd smell, like my whole, the whole thing, it's
you
ruined.
Don't smell that.
Yeah. Nobody. My husband's like, are you having a stroke? What's happening? Why are you? Phantom smells are a symptom of strokes. Yeah. So it's always like,
too. I'm like, do you smell that? Are you making toast? Please tell me you just burned toast.
You smell, So if somebody has like a perfume on that's real intense, and just like we're not gonna be friends, and it's not because I don't like you. I have a negative association with you because you gave me a headache.
Right. Yeah. This is like now my brain is throbbing. Thank you. Do you easily accept compliments?
No, I do not. I like giving compliments. But you gave me a really nice compliment. I
Yes,
totally
you did.
accepted it.
Yes, you
because
did.
you have a great personality. Like, this is perfect. Very good at conversation. I'm not articulating myself well right now because I like that question. I'm deflecting. See, this is what happened. Like, no more talking about this. Move on.
How do you learn best? By listening, watching, reading, or doing?
All of the above. Yeah, so I like to engage all senses. When I'm trying to create a yoga routine, I'll usually do it in my body. And then if there are certain moves, I'll like check out YouTube and try to get some ideas so I can visually see it. And then I'll usually write out some of the key, not for my weekly class, but maybe for like my workshops that I have at Yoga Motive, I'll do, I'll write it out, and then I'll read it back, and then I'll do it. So yeah, I engage all of it, which I think that's kind of what they do with its fancy schools. I want to say
Is it not magnet school?
Not magnet schools. It's a certain type of educational style.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah. I am struggling on this one, but basically it is
Montessori.
Montessori. Amen. There we go. That's why she got this show. Yeah, she knows what she's doing. Yeah. But I think that's what they do. They kind of like incorporate all learning styles. I like that idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
80s or 90s?
Oof, 90s. Yes. I know. I mean, Buffy.
Exactly. Yeah. What will you absolutely not do in front of another person?
Oh, that's hard because I think there's a lot of things I will do in front of other people. I don't know. I'm trying to really. Ooh, yeah. I like fart. I burp. I'm not like I snort. What will I not do in front of people? Crying is hard. Crying's hard. Okay. I did, during the training, I definitely cried in front of people, and that was a bummer.
Usually is.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess that's maybe not what I won't do, but what I prefer.
Rather not do.
And most people, I think, are like that. Yeah.
Yeah. What new skill would you like to learn?
Oh, welding.
Ooh.
Yeah, I have a friend who is an amazing knife maker, and I've been following him forever on Instagram, and he inspires me every single day because he's constantly welding these beautiful pieces.
God, that never occurred. I love knives and swords, and it never occurred to me that welding, I could be making my own.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah.
Put a pin in that. Just one more thing that I'd like to be doing. Yes. And speaking of crying, what is a movie that makes you cry?
What is a movie that consistently makes me cry? There has to be, because I know there is I have a go-to cry film because I do like to cry for film, like in film. I'm trying to think. What's his name? Oh, I can't. We might have to come back to this one because it's not coming to you naturally. It used to be fried green tomatoes, but I think that changed when I got older. I don't know. There's that scene where she has a diabetic spell.
Right.
Julianne, I'm just like, what's happening? It's sad. No, that is a good question, but I am not going to be able to come up with an answer right now.
That's fine.
Yeah. I don't cry.
It's like, I don't cry. What are you talking about?
Dismissed.
But you just, okay.
Yeah.
Outside of family members, with whom is your longest friendship?
My husband.
Oh.
Yeah, my husband and I have been friends we've been together as a couple, I think, for 10 years or something, but we were friends before that. So, yeah, for about 12 years we've been friends. Yeah, it's my homie. Yeah.
I love that. Who is someone who encourages you?
Someone who encourages me. I have a really dope community of humans in my life. Honestly,
That's awesome.
I'm very grateful for that. So I have the group chats that you get, the group texts that you get, which I shouldn't even say that because there are certain friends that I'm like, I don't do group chats. So now it's all out there. Yeah. But 2 or 3 people, it's okay. It's not officially a chat. It's a hang. Yeah. I get a lot of inspiration and validation. Not even validation, but encouragement from my fellow yoga sisters. I made some really lasting friendships from that program. My dear close friend Tamaya Bridget, she again, I brought her up earlier, but she's a huge source of inspiration and support. I think because my family is kind of a train wreck, I've made this very intentional community of humans who I can call upon or who just know, without being all out what's up, Heather? But because that's not the way I roll, but just, sending, if they can kind of sense something's going on or will support any of the creative endeavors that I get involved in. So, yeah.
That's awesome. How do you define success?
Wholeness. Yeah, that's really, for me, the way that I will always define success, because I think I found a variety of sort of like, I feel like I've experienced success to a degree in a variety of ways, but it was not with wholeness. And I think when I show up engaged in all of me and bringing all of me, that feels so, I'm like, whoa, okay, this is how I can do it. This is possible. It feels like possibility, and it feels like honoring this gift of life that I've been given, that we all are given, you know.
You never get tired of blank.
Smoking weed. It's like, just joking. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I just told you that, dude. Right. I've been working. I'm coming back to that over and over again. But I can anytime turn on Buffy and be like I'm like, this is my place, the place I need to be right now. It's just me and Sarah Michelle Gellar. Yeah, I just need to be right there. Yep. Are
you proud of yourself?
I'm very proud of myself. Yeah.
And can you describe yourself in one word?
Stellar.
Yes. Heather Manning, thank you very much for being on my podcast.
Thank you for having me. It was awesome.
And how can people find you on the interwebs if you want to be found on the interwebs?
You can send me a friend request on Instagram at Affrilachian Yogi. That's 2 Fs. And I generally don't really accept Facebook friend requests because who does? Yeah, I try to stay off Facebook. Right. But yeah, if you want to look me up, find me on Instagram. And I also post about my yoga classes. I teach throughout the week and throughout the month, so you can find out more there.
Is it varying places?
It is one location. I teach weekly at the Kingsley Association. 5:30 to 6:15 is a power yoga class, and then 6:30 to 7:30 is a gentleman-only yoga class. So for the fellas or the male-identified people in the world who want to experience yoga in a really safe, inclusive environment, that is a place for you to do that. And then I teach a class once a month at Yoga Motive. It started out as a full moon class, and then it's going to transition, now that we're in spring, into a new moon class. We're going to set some yoga intentions.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So again, thank you. And if you guys, need to find me, I am on the interwebs, RuggedAngel.com, at @the_RuggedAngel on Twitter. Rugged Angel Cast, Rugged Angel is one word, on Facebook, as well as other things. The show can be found on iTunes, Libsyn, and yeah, I think that's pretty much it. All right. So if you need anything else, you know where to find me, and thank you for listening.
Woo.